There we go. Made sure I turned on the mic this time so I don't have to edit the video. Had a minute and a half of dead air in the previous live stream, so but I took that out. So for rewatchers, that previous live stream should not have that dead air. Almost had it this time. Hi, I'm Todd Nauck. Welcome to my YouTube channel for San Diego Comic-Con, Comic-Con at Home art live stream here in my online artist alley table. So thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to be drawing Deadpool here today. This is more of a long form illustration, so we're going to do pencils, inks, colors of kind of a full figure, or as much of full figure Deadpool we can fit on this despicable Deadpool variant blank sketch cover. So I'm going to do my best to answer your questions or respond to comments as I draw. Since a lot of my focus is on the art, I can't promise I can respond to every comment or question, but I'll do the best I can. So without further ado, let's get to drawing. Hope you're enjoying Comic-Con online, Comic-Con at home this weekend. Let's see. I know it's been fun for me to be able to come and do these live streams with you a couple of times each day during the San Diego Comic-Con weekend. Yep, the mic is on. Just got nervous there that it might not be on somehow. Let's see, just gonna try to figure out. Let's see, where's my... I want to be able to see where I'm at here on the live stream to make sure I keep the art in frame as much as possible. I'm trying to figure out a pose here for Deadpool. Let's do some quick gesture sketches. A lot of people ask, how do you come up with poses? This is what I do sometimes. I'll just grab a little scratch sheet of paper and just do these quick little gesture drawings. Kind of give myself an idea of what pose I should put my character in. I might use one of these, I might use none of these, or I might use a combination of a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one. So it just kind of allows me some time to kind of experiment, figure out what I want to do, where to place on screen. Oops, almost going off the screen there. Sometimes I'll change up the sketch midway through. Like here I had Deadpool's arm going across his chest, but then I changed it to going up here along the side. I have a very specific Deadpool costume I want to draw this time. A costume I've never drawn before. It's a variation of his costume, I should say. Kind of liking this last sketch here, kind of how it has the angle of his body going this way, then the leg cuts back this way. Kind of a lurching motion, and then maybe, oh yeah, maybe he's looking back that way. So yeah, I kind of like that last one. See, sometimes you kind of have to work your way into figuring out what's possible, what direction to head in. So let's see, we have the logo there. I'm going to slide that up just out of camera frame. And now I start to translate what I've sketched out here onto my board. Or canvas, whatever it may be, sketch cover or Bristol board or whatever. So just very loosely, I'm going to see if I can replicate this pose onto the sketch cover. What's the name of the pencil I'm using? This is my trusty rusty Unicruatoga mechanical pencil with 0.3 HB lead. It's a 0.3 pencil with 0.3 HB lead. So it's a very fine tipped mechanical pencil. I'm going to have a little more foreshortening of the arm because I don't have as much canvas to work with. Don't have the same width on this actual comic, unless I made Deadpool smaller, but I don't really want to make him smaller. I don't want his, because then his facial details will get smaller, everything gets smaller, so I'm trying to keep him at a good size, filling up the real estate. So just making new choices as I start to move into the art. Allowing myself the freedom to make changes and choices as I go. Do I get new Copics from time to time or use what I have? I definitely use what I have for sure, but sometimes I'll add new colors. Yeah, I'm slowly adding new colors. In fact, I have so many colors here that won't fit in my wallet. I have to get a second 72 count wallet to hold all the new Copic markers I'm adding to my collection. Finding some colors that I really like and probably will be using a lot more frequently. So yeah, I'm always open to discovering new colors. Because the Copic library of colors is quite large. Okay, we'll flesh out this hand a little bit more as I go. Just want to get the body going here before I start putting in the details of the costume. I should draw Onslaught. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I will someday. The character I have not seen in a long time. Not since the 1990s. That's the last time I remember a story featuring Onslaught. How big is your figure sketching supposed to be? As big as you want or need it to be. There is no one set size, in my opinion. Depends on how your composition of your illustration and the canvas you're working on. Every illustration, in my opinion, is going to be different. And it's going to have its own requirements to achieve that vision. So the figure only needs to be as big as it needs to be in your drawing. So right now, this shot of Deadpool is the size I would like for it to be to fill up the space of this sketch cover. There is no one like requirement. I could have made him smaller. I could have pushed in and made him even bigger. That's the fun of it. We get to make these choices. I hope that's an answer to the question you were asking. Hopefully I understood correctly. What shapes can be used for drawing weapons? For me, most of the times it's rectangles, also with some circles or ovals, depending on the angle of the barrel of the weapon or the handle of the sword, depending on the type of weapon being drawn and the angle of that weapon being drawn. Speaking of swords, we're going to throw the handles of his swords right back here. Those classic Rob Liefeld style pouches. Since I can't put the full figure on here, I'm going to throw in some sort of background here, kind of like this mist that he's coming through. Hopefully that showed up there on the screen. So once I get into inks, we'll have much tighter details. Okay. A lot of heavy lifting is going on right here, right now. Trying to figure out where everything needs to go, what everything needs to be. So I'll try to get back to answering some questions or responding to some comments here in a moment. Appreciate y'all posting, live viewers. Have I ever drawn John Constantine? I might have once at a convention. I seem to have a vague memory of having done that, but it's probably only that one time that I can barely remember, if at all. Get this other arm in here with the other gun. I'm drawing, like I said, if you just tuned in, I'm drawing a very specific Deadpool costume, one I've never drawn before. Let's see, do I think big screen representations of characters, I'm assuming from comics, should have the same costume or nearly the same costume as they have in the comics? Do I think they should? I don't know if I think they should. Comics are comics and movies are movies, and not everything seems to translate exactly depending on the character. I think the movies have done a pretty good job with translating it. There are some that I think are hits. There are some that I think might not be hitting as strongly as it could have been, but you know, it's a different medium. It's different than comics. If you look at the Marvel movies, the costumes are far more ornate and detailed because it looks great on the screen. But when it comes to drawing comics, that amount of detail, which I've had to draw the movie versions of these costumes in the comics, takes an infinitely longer time to draw because you're drawing numerous seams. And it's like, wow, there is so much detail. It works great if you're wearing the costume, but it's a bit more challenging when you have to draw it panel after panel after panel. So I like it when they kind of walk the line between the two, when they give us something that's reminiscent of the comic book, where it's recognizable as the character, but maybe then gives us something new or something that is kind of believable if someone were to wear that in the real world. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know if I would necessarily say should, but I do appreciate it when it looks like the comic book costume. It's fun for me as a fan, but I'm also open to letting it be whatever it needs to be, because in my opinion, the cinematic universe is a different reality than the comic book universe, just as the TV universe is a different reality than the comic book or movie universe, or the cartoon is a different reality for those characters than the comic book, movie, or TV universe. So you see, it's like I have to think of it as its own reality because it's a whole new story with characters I'm familiar with, if that makes sense. So again, wibbly wobbly answers. If you watch my live streams, you know I sometimes give wibbly wobbly answers, and I think that might have been one of them. But yeah, I try not to hold too tightly to it should look exactly like the comic book look, but I do appreciate it when it does look like it or it looks close to it. I think they've been doing a good job of it. I think they've been doing a good job. So the costume I'm designing, or I'm not designing it, it's already been designed. The costume I'm drawing is from issue 17 of the Deadpool series, when he wore one of the X-Men training uniforms, like that the New Mutants wore, or the original X-Men wore back in the 1960s, the yellow and black with the boots, with the cuffs. I thought that would be really fun to draw. Because one, I've never drawn Deadpool wearing that, and two, as a big X-Men fan, I like that costume, and I thought it would be fun to draw him wearing that specific costume with the yellow gloves, yellow boots, and whatnot. The little yellow trunks, So that's the version of Deadpool I'm drawing today. We'll have him firing off a shot here. Okay, oops, some of that might have been off the screen. My apologies, gang. My apologies. Where did I buy my pencil? I bought mine at jetpens.com. Look up Uni Kurutoga, Kurutoga, Kurutoga. Uni is UNI, Uni Kurutoga on jetpens.com. And I am using the 0.3 pencil. Now, mind you, if you buy a mechanical pencil, make sure you look on it to see what size it is. There's the 0.3, the 0.7, and 0.3, 0.5, and 0.7. You have to buy the exact lead that matches that size. If you get 0.7 lead and a 0.5 mechanical pencil, it's not compatible. You can put the lead in, but it's not going to come out because the lead will be too thick for the little chamber that the lead has to go through to come out the end. So make sure you buy the right lead, right size lead for the sized mechanical pencil you're using. Most, like if you get mechanical pencils at like office supply stores, those are oftentimes 0.7s, maybe 0.5s, but rarely do I see a 0.3 there. That's more of an, I think I see more art people use the 0.3. So. All right. So I think I've got maybe just enough information here to start inking. I might come in and do some pencil adjustments as I go. What's the best superhero costume design in my opinion? I don't even know if I have an answer for that. There are so many great costumes out there designed by so many great creators. I can't say there is one best one, unfortunately. Can't say it. I don't think there's, I don't have an answer for one best one. So I'm going to start with something that's in the foremost foreground here to start my inks and work my way back. So since this arm is moving forward, I want to address it first. It's easier to layer going foreground to background for me. Helps me keep everything lined up as best as possible. Okay, I will need my triangle for some nice straight lines on the on his pistol. First, I'm going to start working on the thumb and fingers. You were wanting to go to San Diego Comic-Con, but the pandemic, having this all happen online, has been giving you the access that you never would have had. Yeah, I think that's the case for, well, almost so many people. Being online has made Comic-Con International truly international. Because now we have people watching from all over the world. Or at least I know I have people watching from all over the world here on my channel. I appreciate that. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Appreciate y'all hanging out with me this San Diego Comic-Con weekend. My thanks to everyone who's been able to join me for the previous live streams. If this is my first of my San Diego live streams that you've been able to join me on, thank you. So glad you're here. You can all see the previous live streams in replay here on my channel. I always try to keep the live streams on my channel, archived on my channel for replay, rewatch. Drawing the pistol here. see. Now here on the muzzle flare, might show just a little bit of the gun. But not a lot of it. Kind of a portion of it, but the brightness of the muzzle flare kind of washing out the details. Just like that. Let's see, yesterday you saw me grabbing an Iron Man Marvel Legend action figure. Do you collect them as well? I collect specific characters. I don't collect them all. Mostly I collect X-Men, but I do like that armor. That's one of my favorite Iron Man armors, so I had to get that one. Yeah, too many figures out there, not enough space in my home or my studio. So I have to be very selective. Even when it comes to the X-Men, I have to pick certain X-Men. I don't buy every X-Man. Am I still on screen? Okay, there we go. Okay, microphone, you're a little too low. Let's see if I move it over this way. Keep bumping it with my pen, which I've been doing all weekend long. Thanks for all the kind words, everybody. Appreciate that. Glad you're enjoying what you're seeing. Thanks for enjoying my live streams. Glad you're having fun. That's the goal. Have fun. See if there's any new questions. Which actress played Jean Grey better, in my opinion? Sophie Turner or Famke Janssen? It's kind of hard for me to say. I think they both did a great job. They're playing two different era of Jean Grey, where Famke Janssen was more of the adult Jean Grey. Sophie Turner was playing the teenage Jean Grey. So they're kind of two different times in Jean Grey's life. So it's hard for me to kind of compare them in that way. What do I think of Kamala Khan? She was one of the first comics you read and felt like asking what I thought of her. I think she's great. I think she has a great spirit to her character. I think she's a really fun character, and yeah, I look forward to seeing more from her. Hopefully she'll get a spot in the MCU here soon. But as a comic book character so far, she's been really cool. I'm glad they created her. and it's been fun to draw her in the books that I've worked on, or covers. I've probably drawn her in one story and a few covers, at least 2 covers. Well, technically 4 covers if you can count my Where's Hydra and Where's Wolverine covers. She appeared on both of those. Yeah, great character, great visuals. When did I start using Pigma Microns? I've been using them probably since the 1990s. I've been using these for a long time. Or this brand, I should say. These aren't the... This isn't the same pen I used since the 1990s. I mean, I wear these out pretty fast. That's why I buy them by the box loads. Do I use crow quill pen or brushes before? I do have a crow quill pen. I try practicing with that one whenever I get the chance. I haven't really inked with dip brushes, but I do use brush pens. Like when I was doing the muzzle blast here on this one pistol, I was using a zebra brush pen. Which I think I forgot to mention that. Which is kind of like halfway between a brush and a marker. That's the way I see it. It's like a mid-range. How to get over the fear of inking. You're always nervous going over your pencils, thinking you'll mess up your drawing. Yeah, that's understandable fear. It's a legitimate fear, I think. You're not alone in thinking that. How to get over that fear? I don't know if you're gonna like my answer. You got to run the risk. You're probably gonna mess up some drawings. And that's just gonna happen. I've done it myself. But one thing you can do is, if you have a computer in your home with a scanner, if you have access to a scanner, scan in your art. Then take that art and print it out. Like, if you can, convert it into blue lines. Convert it into non-repro blue lines. There's a setting in Photoshop called Duotone, and you can set that to 0 black, 0 cyan, 0 magenta, and then maybe like 0 yellow, 0 magenta, 0 black, cyan, which is a shade of blue. You want that set at like maybe 10 or 15. Sometimes I set it at like 7%. And then print that out, and then you can practice inking over that, and you can print that out multiple times, ink over those blue lines, and then you're not destroying or running the risk of messing up your original pencils, if you don't want to risk that. So if you have access to that kind of technology, then that would be a way to go to do your inks in a way where you don't risk destroying the original. I didn't have that as an option when I was starting out, so I just would, run the risk. Sometimes I'd get it right, sometimes I'd get it wrong, oftentimes I'd get it wrong. or I'd mess it up and, you know, just move on. Just like, ugh, lesson learned. But that's the thing. When we mess up in our art, that's not a failure so much as an opportunity to learn. What did you learn from that mistake? And if you learn something, then it's not a mistake. It was a learning opportunity. So, so try to think of it that way. Kind of helps take the sting off. Not to say it takes the sting away. It just kind of helps lessen the sting of jacking up a piece of art. We're still going to feel that, but it's like, well, what did I learn from this? You know, when you can kind of get to a place where it's like, all right, there's no rescuing this. What did I learn? What could I have done differently? So that next time you're entering it with that knowledge of, oh, I remember not to make these lines this time because last time it did not look so good. So hopefully that question or that answer helps with your question there. Clip Studio Paint can create blue lines as well. Yes. If you're drawing digitally, which is what I do now. When I draw my comics and my covers, I draw them digitally, print them out in blue line on artboards, then ink them traditionally. For a vast majority, I'd say 95 to 99% of the comic book work I do is inked traditionally over digital pencils that are then converted into blue line. And if the things I said about how to convert your stuff into blue line was a bit like hard to remember, search on YouTube here how to convert line art into non-repro, as in non-reproduction. It's called non-repro blue. And I think you might be able to find some tutorials on here, because that's what I did years ago when I needed to start printing my stuff out in blue line. And I needed to figure out how to do that. I did a search here on YouTube. This was probably 10 years ago. So there should be at least a 10-year-old video on here that, not a video made by a 10-year-old, a video that's been on here for 10 years that explains that process that I just mentioned moments ago. Oops, I hope the top of his head was in frame when I was inking it. What do I use for my drawing? I use a Wacom Mobile Studio. What do I use for my digital drawing? I should read the full question before answering it. What I use for my digital drawing, I use the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro 13, and I use a program called Clip Studio Paint, which used to be called Manga Studio 5. And it's a really cool program. A lot of great tools in there. In fact, I do have some digital art live streams and videos here posted on my channel. If you search or if you go to my playlists, you can find that dedicated playlist of my my digital art videos, and there'll be more to come. I will be doing more of those, hopefully in the near future. Tightening up that gun before I commit to inks. Where's my triangle, my drafting tools, an important tool for comic book creators. If you want to be a comic book artist, you're like serious about it, make sure you get yourself a T-square, a triangle, French curves, and circle and ellipse templates. Ellipses are to make those oval shapes when necessary. These are critical tools as a comic book creator. These are draftsman's tools. And trust me, you're going to like having them when you have to draw your backgrounds. You draw your cities, your tech. They really, really come in handy. Also good for building perspective grids. Okay, let's see. Let's connect this hand to that shoulder now that I've got the hand and gun figured out. Work on these arm muscles here. Okay, let's see. Here's a long question. How do you have control over the Micron 08 as whenever you use the 08, which is what I'm using right here, the Micron 08, you always get thick lines, and sometimes you want it varied, as I do, have the thick and thin. How do I do it? It's learning to control the amount of pressure. So the harder you push down, the thicker the line, the less you push down, the thinner the line. So it takes a while to train your hand how to give a thick and thin line, how much pressure to give and not give. Sometimes you need to take a piece of scratch paper and practice going thick and thin. Like, let me see here. I got a scratch sheet right here. If I can access it underneath all these other pens. Just doing this, pressing down hard, light, hard, light, hard, light. You get a slight variation there. So it just takes time to train yourself, really. It just takes practice, practice, practice. And rarely is it an overnight sort of thing. It's going to take a while to do. Most of the time, not all the time, but it feels like most of the time, our evolution, the results from our practice happens over the course of much time. I think it's rare that it happens, that there's a significant change that happens like overnight or the first time we try a new technique. But that can vary depending on where our skills are at, what we're learning, what we're trying to do, things like that. So now I'm using one of those ellipse templates, as I mentioned before, because Deadpool's circular belt buckle is at an angle here. So I want to convey that slight perspective there. Get that center of the buckle figured out. Now use a smaller ellipse to help make the ring, so I know where to start, where to stop. So now I can take like something like my French curve here. Now draw the center with a slight curvature. I like to put a slight curvature, like it's a little bit of a convex shape. Like it's kind of like a slight bubble shape. Very slight, slightly rounded out towards, not just round around the perimeter or the diameter. Beef up the lines around these things so I have plenty of room to fill in the black a little bit later on. Start working on these pouches that overlap. See this cord. Get this out of my way. There we go. Have I considered teaching an art class? Beyond these art live streams I do? No, I have not considered that. At least not at this time. But maybe someday. Can I do a vid for coloring in Clip Studio Paint when I scan in traditional artwork, please? You know, whether I'm coloring my traditional art or coloring my digital art, it's all the same process. So if you check out the digital art videos that I've posted so far, the ones where I'm doing coloring, it would be the same process, whether it's digital line art or traditional line art. It's exactly the same. Because the line art is the line art, no matter how I create it. So, but I might do something someday that is something I drew on paper that I scanned and colored. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that I will never do that. I'm just saying that you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait to see how I do my digital coloring. You can check out I think I have 3 or 4 vids up right now where I do digital coloring, so you can check that out. I'm still learning a lot about digital coloring, so I'm only able to show what I currently know how to do. But you can see that on my digital art playlist here on my channel. Because who knows when I'll do a live stream or a video where I'm coloring my traditional art. Slide this up a little bit because I know we're going to start inking some legs here in a moment. Actually, just before we get to that, we have the center. Because he's wearing the black and yellow uniform. If y'all are just tuning in, I'm drawing Deadpool in the X-Men class training uniform from the comic, not from the movie. So we're going to be spotting a lot of blacks here in a little bit. Right now I'm just getting the initial line work done. So he's got the little yellow chonies. Back when superheroes wore their underwear on the outside. Sometimes you wonder how they colored comics back in the day. You're sure I'll know this. Actually, I do know this. Back prior to like the mid 1990s, I would say, kind of things started to change in the early to mid 1990s when it came to comic book coloring. But prior to that, like in the olden days of like the golden age of comics, the 1930s and 40s through the 60s into the 70s, even the 80s, they would have to take a photograph of the line art. It's camera ready artwork is what that would be called. Camera ready line art. So they take a photo of the artwork, and then for color they did this printing process called halftone. So they only used 4 colors: black, yellow, magenta, and cyan. Those colors still come into play with printing nowadays, but it's handled digitally. But a vast majority of it's handled digitally. So for every color that was in a comic book, they had to use those 4 colors and ratios, dot ratios of each of those. That's why sometimes if you look at a comic, you see all these little dots. If you look at like an older comic, it's like all these dots that make up the skin tone, or a pink, or a light shade of green, or any shade of green really, because they weren't using green. They were using variations of cyan and yellow, depending on the shade of green they needed. So they could get any color they wanted out of those 4 colors, depending on the ratio of how much of black, cyan, magenta, and yellow were in those. So how did they get that color onto the page? There'd be oftentimes there would be a colorist who would do a marker comp, much like how you see me coloring with markers. They'll color up the page, a photocopy of the page, not the actual artwork. The actual artwork was never colored on. They would take a photocopy of that page and do a marker rendering over on that photocopy and label every color that was used. Then a team of film cutters. These are people who would take the guide, the marker guide, and all the different colors. They'd have to cut a separate piece of film on an overlay. So they'd have these multiple overlays that were clear, that had this clear piece of film. So all the reds, they had to cut out all the places that were red. The next layer, all the places that were yellow. Next layer, all the places that are this shade of green. Next layer, all the places that are this shade of green. They had to do that for every page. And then the camera would take a photo of each of those layers and would print them as that color. So it's the process gets even deeper than that. But essentially what they would do, they had to cut film for each layer of color. That's why it was always flat color. Very rarely did we get the rounding gradations and the lush shading and that level of art that we see nowadays in the coloring in comics. That was very difficult to do in the early days and through the first several decades of comics. And this is stuff I learned. I learned how to cut these films in to produce camera-ready artwork in my training and study at the Art Institute. I think I might have been one of the last classes, one of the last generations that learned that, because shortly after I graduated, not that I was ever going to utilize those skills in my career. I wanted to be a comic book artist, not work in that type of publication. But I had to learn it because that was the part of my course of study. So I was just taking everything I learned at school and applying it to comics. They had to, my school, I believe, had switched over to desktop publishing. They focused more on that than cutting chunks of film. So, and now I don't know of really any publisher that produces their art in that way. Maybe some people do, but I don't think it happens that way at Marvel or DC or any of the other publishers. I think it's all digital because it's more time efficient. It's better quality. Yeah, so that's how it used to be colored back in the day. So you need to tighten up some of these leg muscles here a little bit. It's mostly black, so we're not going to see a lot of definition in his muscles now that I think about it. But we'll see some. Then he's going to have those cuffed. We're only going to see one of the cuffs of the boots because the other leg's going too far off the page. Then we're going to have the smoke screen coming in. All right. How did they color in the 1950s when color didn't exist yet? That is funny. That is funny. You know, I don't know. I wasn't born yet. I was still many years away from being born. So your guess is as good as mine. I wasn't alive back then either. My parents were. I should ask them. I should ask my dad. What was life like before they invented color? Like, how did you know what to pick to wear to school? The gray shirt or the slightly less gray shirt? Or maybe the slightly darker gray shirt with a slightly less gray pant? Just the choices must have been infinitely easier to make when color didn't exist. Isn't it interesting that we don't know the scientists that discovered color? It's probably Crayola. Probably Professor Crayola. Because, I mean, those crayons, they had all these different names for colors beyond red, blue, and stuff. I'm sure there's some sort of connection there. Because how long have Crayola crayons been around? Dad jokes. And actually, they did have color in the 1950s because those 1950s comics, 1930s comics, all had color. So what was that about? Maybe we're in the middle of a Mandela effect. Oh, Newton. It was Newton that discovered color when the apple fell and hit him on the head. Fell from the tree and hit him on the head. He discovered gravity and thought, hey, while I'm at it, this apple is red. I've just discovered color. I mean, that would make sense. Kodak. Oh, it was Kodak that discovered color. Yeah, see. So hard to know what all. Who discovered color? Maybe it was with us all the while. Now my mind is blown. Did I ever practice drawing body parts as basic shapes? If so, any tips? I I'm sure I did. I remember practicing in a after-school art program I was in elementary school. We had to draw like eyes, and we had to draw noses, and we had to draw mouths. So yes, I have done that, but that was a lot of years ago. As far as tips, just no, I don't have any basic tips other than you know, just draw from real life whenever possible. Look at photos of, you know, eyes or arms or noses or legs, and then just translate those shapes as needed. You can look into some life drawing expert books like Bern Hogarth, Andrew Loomis, George Bridgman. Those could be possibly be a help to you. So hope that helps. A lot of my life was just going for it. Just, I want to draw, just start drawing things. I want to draw hands or eyes or, you know, my character, whatever it is, then I would just do it. And then just any place where I was weak, I would study to get better. And that was a lot of my early days as a youth, just trying. But then also doing it for the fun of it. I just focused on having fun and learn as I go. So that's, you know, my experience. It's what I can speak to from my experience. And feel free to give it a try for your art or your art journey. So kind of drawing this smoke cloud kind of pulling away here, like Deadpool stepping out from inside of it and throwing out a few shots. Would I like some chicken nuggets? You know, that does sound kind of good. It actually sounds really good. All right, let's see about where I can start putting in some of the black areas of his costume. If you just tuned in, I'm drawing the X-Men costume Deadpool from the comic book. And after I'm done with the line art here, we are going to throw in some Copic color. I'm just blocking out where the black shapes are. Kind of already done that with the legs. Now when I come in here and fill it all in, it's going to make a lot more sense. So in order to do this, I need to know the shapes of my muscles. The shapes of the muscles I'm drawing. Not the shape of my muscles. Those are easy shapes, just flabby shapes. But for Deadpool, I need to know the shapes of each shoulder muscle, each arm muscle, to the best of my ability. So every place where I need to put black, I can drop in these little X's. And that's just a notation for me. Fill this area in black. it's too big of an area to fill in with my pen. Am I enjoying Comic-Con at home? I absolutely am, yes. If I can't be in San Diego, I'm glad I can be here. I'm glad you can come and join me. Oops, I'm so sorry. Part of the shoulders were off screen. So sorry, I'm pushed in so you can see the detail. I keep forgetting to shift the art when I move up to parts or move down to parts that are might be off camera, so my apologies. So I was just creating these shapes over here and then these shapes over here. My apologies, gang. I'll try to do better about that. Okay. So I'm going to use, he has X-Men scrawled across the front of his in red. I'm going to do that just in straight Sharpie, or in straight Copic marker. I'm not even going to ink that in. I want it just to be red, like he's painted it on his chest. Now I need to put the details in his face and his swords. And then we might be getting close to time for some color. Right now, let's tackle these eyes. How do I think up ideas for the characters I draw, or do they have to go off of other artists' work? Well, let's see. How do I answer this question? Whoops. Are we? Oh, the charger fell out. There we go. Almost ran out of battery there on the tablet, which is my hub for all of my webcams and microphone. So every artist is able to draw in their own style, but we have to stay consistent with like the costume details so that every character, so the character looks consistent with the other titles they might appear in. So if I'm drawing an issue of, like I had to draw an issue of Spider-Man Deadpool. The young X-Men appeared in that one issue, or at least Cyclops did. So I had to look up what is Cyclops' current costume, because that's what he's currently wearing, so that's what I have to draw, so it looks like it's happening at the right time in the Marvel Universe. But I'm able to draw young Cyclops in my style, and I don't have to draw it in the style of what he looks like by the artist who's drawing the comic book that that character is starring in, if that makes sense. So we're allowed to have our own style, but whatever costume that character is wearing, we will sometimes have to reference that if we're unaware of it. So it's like I've never drawn this specific young Cyclops costume. I need to look at it so I can get all the details right, or as right as possible. Hope that made sense. Can I recite the entire script of Hamlet in Korean? No, I cannot. I cannot. Have I ever drawn Omega Red? I did draw him on my Hunt for Wolverine cover. So technically, yes, I have drawn him at least once. Oh yeah, we're working on his eyes, that's right. Do I have plans to draw Yellow Jacket? I do not have plans to draw Yellow Jacket at the moment. But you never know what the future holds. I don't really have plans to draw any specific character at the moment. But any character, there's always a possibility that I could draw just about any character at any given time on one of these live streams or a future art video. Heck, I didn't even know I was going to draw Deadpool until after I did my Post-it note live stream earlier today. Would I ever draw a Star Wars comic? There's that possibility. I did do a Luke Skywalker story early in my career for Tales, for Star Wars Tales, when Dark Horse was putting out that comic. It's actually now on the Marvel Universe app and probably in specific trade paperback collections. I think it's in one of the Star Wars trade paperback collections when Marvel acquired or reattained the Star Wars license. They got access to all of the Dark Horse comics as well, and so hence you can now read all those many of those Dark Horse comics, at least those Star Wars Tales ones, on the Marvel app. And they also released them in a new trade paperback, possibly hardcover. I think they sent me one years ago when that all happened. But I have not done a Star Wars story since then. I've done a couple of covers. I did a solo cover. I did a Vader Down variant, and I did a variant cover for C-3PO, the C-3PO one-shot that tied into Force Awakens. But that's it as far as my professional Star Wars work has gone. Oops, I apologize if this slid. I thought I was still on screen. I'm so sorry when I was inking his eye pieces here. So sorry, gang. I thought I was. I must have accidentally slid everything up. What are my thoughts on Alien versus Predator? Are you going to draw them? No plans to draw them. I mean, like I said to the Yellow Jacket question, never know what the future might hold. So I will say my thought of them, scary dudes. Those are scary alien monsters. That's my thought on them. Scary. They're very bitey. Well, at least the alien is very bitey. Why you gotta be biting so much? The Alien toy. Okay, back in the, that movie came out like in the late 1970s, I think. So late 1970s, maybe early 1980s, they had this like 12-inch Alien toy. So it's the Alien, and he had this little trigger in the back of his head where the little mouth would come out. So he had this like biting motion. So the toy terrified me because I was a little kid. Star Wars was new. I was maybe 6, 7, 8. And you know, it was just a terrifying image. And at the toy store in my town, I love going to the action figure aisle, as I mean, what kid didn't? Or I still do. I'd go because I'd want to go look at the Star Wars action figures because I was a big Star Wars fan. I mean, Star Wars action figures were new, and it was fun to go and look at all these different action figures and which one could I get someday. And I always was nervous going down that aisle because right across the aisle of the Star Wars action figures, so they had them on one wall, and on the opposite wall of that aisle, at the top shelf, they had that alien monster toy. And he just stood there looming. And I was almost certain that thing was alive. And if I kept my back turned to it for too long, it would jump down on me, attack me, and bite me like a gremlin. And I was scared of that thing. And scared of it for a long time. And so whenever I think of the Alien, I think of, because that was my first exposure to that Alien, was that toy. And whew, it scared me. It had to have been alive. I was so certain this thing must be alive and it's going to attack me. Thankfully, it never did. Spoiler alert, it did not attack me nor bite me. So I'm safe, I'm okay. But it's often something I think about whenever I think of that movie franchise or property, is that toy that terrified me. Maybe I'll finish my children's book about the toy that terrified me. I'm gonna just put a little bit of the scabbard of his sword from this angle down this way. All right. Let me put a few buckles here on his holster strap. Okay, I think it's time to just a little more smoke trailing off here. So next up is we're going to erase, and then I can fill in the blacks, and then we'll throw in some color. So actually, I want to start with not that eraser, but my kneaded art gum eraser. Pull this all out. Let's see if there are any new questions here. What made me get interested in drawing comic book characters, and what is the most difficult one? I always had a love for superheroes. Started with action figures, led to cartoons, then that led me to the comic books. And I've just always enjoyed superheroes. I love the costumes, the powers, the larger-than-life stories and adventures. So, and I've loved that ever since I was a little kid. Still love it to this day. So just been a lifelong passion that's I've always enjoyed. Most difficult character to draw? Galactus is way up there. I'd put Galactus on that list. Probably the more ornate the design, the more detail in the design, the more difficult it is to draw. I'd probably say that. So it can vary from character to character, depending on how complex is the design. All right, looks like the pencil lines came up pretty well with just the kneaded eraser. We'll come back and I'll write X-Men on there a little bit later. I'm wondering, now that I've erased all the pencil lines, maybe I'll put a waft of smoke coming off of his other pistol. Make sure that's in frame. Just give a little more detail on that side. Okay. Let's take my, actually I want to erase some more of this. Don't want the line art of that muzzle right there. Because it's going to be very bright right where the bullet comes out, where it explodes out, so don't want to see the other side of it. Now I take my Pentel pocket brush pen, Now I can fill in all the black areas. Sometimes I fill this in last. I'm going to fill it in before I go to colors this time. I think I'll be safe. Famous last words. All the places I dropped in that little X, just to remind me, fill this section with black ink. After I do this, then I can move into colors. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. I appreciate y'all spending a portion of your San Diego Comic-Con weekend here with me. And if you had to come back to watch this in replay, thanks for watching in the replay, everyone. Thanks for all the replay watchers. So that's one leg. Oh, I forgot his belt buckle as well. Dangerous if you forget to put an X in the spot you're going to fill black, you might miss it. Or fill it in the wrong way. Like here I should have an X there, an X there, X, X, X. Don't most characters have standard poses? For example, Spider-Man crouching or web slinging, Batman swooping down with cape flared out, etc. Yeah, I mean there are some aspects of the character's pose that reflect their abilities or their body types. Absolutely, like the Hulk being a big, rampaging monster. Absolutely. But I don't know. So there are those aspects that we are familiar with of those characters, but we're not limited strictly to that. It all depends on the story that we're telling. What is going on with the character? Like Spider-Man, oftentimes, yes, he is crouching, but sometimes if Spider-Man's talking to J. Jonah Jameson, maybe he's just standing there like a normal person talking to him while in costume. Or if he's talking to people on the street. I've had to draw that scene where Spider-Man helps an old lady who had lost her house keys, and he helps her get them back out of the sewer grate. It wasn't really a spidery sort of moment. It was just like, I'm a person helping this other person. I just happened to be wearing a Spider-Man suit, so he wasn't really as crouchy or spider-like. So it all depends on the story, in my opinion, on how that can be handled. What conveys the moment or the emotion of that moment, or the the story of that moment. So, but yes, absolutely, there are things that are common to some of these characters that we often do see Spider-Man crouching or swinging in these very contorted poses. Absolutely, and we're going to continue to see that, and that is fun to see. But we're not solely limited to just that. Like, he can never be drawn in any other pose. Yeah. Hopefully that addresses that topic a little bit there. Have I ever drawn Spider-Man walking down the street doing the finger guns? I don't think I have, but I have drawn him walking down the street. Yes. Let's see. I think I've got all the black areas filled in. So now we can move on to colors. I'll try to share the Copic codes as I utilize them. Right now we'll start with his guns. Using some neutral gray 3. Yeah, I think there was a question about, do I sell the original art to the comic books I draw? I do. I'm trying to get my website e-commerce page built up so that I can offer those for sale. I do sell the pages when a selection of the pages that I can carry to a convention. When I make my convention appearances, I usually have 3 to 4 binders that I bring to sell pages. But put a little start putting this gray here in his shoulder strap buckles. But yeah, as far as selling it online, I haven't been able to move that forward just yet. I need to check with my friend who's helping me get that portion of my website going, see how difficult it would be to actually bring that to fruition. So stay tuned. Once I get that going, hopefully sooner than later, I will be posting announcements on my website as well as my social media. And a little light blue inside of these guns here, just to kind of give them that blue steel sort of look. Little B000 here. Don't need a lot, just a little. Just kind of gives them a little color. I'll maybe say on the buckles, give them a silvery look. All right, let's take care of that muzzle flash. That'll be fun to do. Gotta use some oranges, working from dark to light. I'm gonna start with the Y16. Power that down to the Y12. Little YR01. So I'm building towards white, right where the muzzle, the bullet's coming out, right where it's firing. Oh, Y000. Put a little bit of this in the gun, so it's like reflecting the light, the orange flare onto the gun itself. Oh, darn it, did that slip out of frame? Good gravy. I have my little tape here to show me when I'm in frame, but apparently I'm slipping out of frame. Off camera. Yeah, I'm so sorry, gang. I'm so sorry. I'll keep trying to get better at this. I'll still keep trying to keep it in frame. Let's see. Let's do the handles of his swords. Gonna try some E25 to start. Well, E55. Let's color his shoulder straps next with some tan, some E84. Use this on his belt as well. So use some E81. All right, up next, let's do the reds of his costume, because that's pretty much just his mask. Is my artwork exclusive? I don't know if I understand what you mean, if my artwork is exclusive. In what context? If you'd like to, was that Lydia that asked that? If you'd like to expound on that, I'll see if I have an answer for you. I want to make sure I answer your question correctly. If you're asking if I'm signed exclusive to Marvel, no, I'm not. I work freelance. So I do a lot of work for Marvel. Marvel gives me a lot of work. They've been giving me a lot of work for the past many, many years. But I'm also able to work for other publishers as well. So I was able to do a comic book for Dark Horse recently, the Mystery Science Theater 3000 comic book, which was a lot of fun to do. I love that show. I've been a fan of that show for a long time, since I was younger. And so to get a chance to draw that comic book series based on the TV show was a lot of fun. Am I out of frame again? Thank you, Larry. What is going on with me today? I've never been this out of frame this consistently in a live stream. So sorry, gang. I have to work out a better system. What's throwing me is I think the logo might be throwing me. Of course, it didn't the past two live streams, so I don't know what my problem is today. Probably con brain. That's what we call it when we get exhausted from the convention and you say, you know, you misspeak or do something backwards. It's like, oh, I've got con brain. So worn out from the convention, I'm not thinking clearly. I put some of this red, oh yeah, in his belt buckle. I think one of the things I did was I moved, set up the camera to where my artwork was closer down here to me, so I wouldn't have to move up so far to get to it. So I would hopefully not bump the camera as much. So I'm wondering if that difference is what's making me slide the camera out of frame more regularly this go around, because that is definitely a consistent change from, but that's a noticeable difference this time than the previous two times. Was I was trying to set myself up to not bump the camera as much. Now I'm not keeping stuff on camera as much. Work in progress, people. Work in progress. Remember how I said we learn from our mistakes? That's what I'm doing. Sometimes it takes a while to learn. So I'm using the R56, R27, and R24 to build up these reds. We're showing a little bit of his regular Deadpool costume underneath here. So the top doesn't quite fit him right. So it's kind of cinching up. A little bit more of this up in his face. Make sure I've slid down so it's all in frame. I'm going to bring in some of that orange, some YR16, or kind of my bright highlight color I like to use for the reds. Makes them very vibrant. There we go. That's fun. It's kind of fun to see him in a different costume than all red. So once we start putting the yellows in here, the yellows and the grays of the black parts of the suit, this is gonna, I think, gonna look pretty cool. So I want to color the pouches on his belt first. So we'll use a different shade of tan. So the E34. Start off. E31. Try some art tape. I have art tape here. I am not paying attention to my art tape, apparently. Do I read Archie comics? Not really. Not so much nowadays. I have enjoyed Archie in the past, just have not been keeping up with it, unfortunately. Let's see. Where's that light tan I was using a moment ago? Oh, I got this new color, this E87. Do I want to use some of that? I think I'm going to put some of that here in the some of the pouches here. And give it a little bit of a darker look. Just to kind of break up the pouch selection. Oh yeah, I need to color this scabbard behind him. The E81, where did that one go? No, that's not it. There it is. Do a little second coat in some of these places. All right. Let's see how we're doing here. A little bit of a darker color there in the hilt, or the handle, I should say. Let's start putting some of the grays in. We'll do maybe yellows last. So through the black, we have some grays. We'll start with a neutral. Oh, I see spot I need to fill in red. The trim on his eyelet there. Make sure that's nice and consistent. Thanks for all the great questions, gang. Sorry I can't respond to them all. Let's see, when drawing all day, what do I do to recharge after drawing all day? The comic book, aside from eat and sleep. Eating and sleeping is the best way to recharge. That's the best way to recharge. My body needs fuel, my body needs rest. So that's how I recharge. When I like to chill, I like to watch one of my favorite TV shows. I like to hang out with my wife. And hang out with friends as well. But after a long day of drawing, it's usually just eat dinner, watch a show or two, maybe read a comic book, go to sleep. Let's see. So that was the neutral gray 4 I used on his mask. I'll use that here on his the gray part of his costume peeking out underneath. But for the X-Men part of the costume, I'm going to start a little darker with a neutral 5 to start the process of building the gradation, starting a little darker. Freelance being better than being in one company. When you, let's see, as a freelancer, I do most of my work for one company. It's Marvel. But I do have the opportunity, being freelance, I do have opportunities to work for other companies. Now it's, when you sign exclusive to work for that one company, and companies will sign their certain creators exclusivity for, usually it's 1 to 2 years, and then they review the contract or renegotiate if they want to extend the contract or release the artist from that contract. When you're under contract, you have guaranteed work. When you're freelance, you got to hustle for that next gig, but you're able to hustle anywhere you need to. So there are pros and cons, I think, to either. I'd say probably, from my experience, pros to either one or the other. I know I have enjoyed my work as a freelance comic book artist pretty much my entire career. I've gotten to work on a lot of great comics, work with a lot of great people, have a lot of great opportunities. So I've gotten to, have a really good time in my career and do something that I love. So it all just depends on the artist's needs or career goals, or the opportunities presented to them. So I can't say is one better than the other. Now a little neutral gray 3. Oh, slide this down. I'm sure I'm slipping off screen again, knowing me. A little bit clear through the leg. And coming up soon, really soon, will be the yellows. All right, yeah, so we're looking at the yellows now. So we're going to start with some of the darker yellow. These are my traditional yellows I use for my characters that wear yellow. What's my favorite 80s cartoon? Gosh, I grew up with so many great 80s cartoons. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was a favorite, still is a favorite from that time. G.I. Joe, Transformers, Mask. Now, mind you, where I lived at that time, out in the country, just outside of Dallas. I'm from Texas, if y'all didn't know. I didn't get every channel. Especially I didn't get all the big Dallas channels that showed all the cool cartoons. I only got 1 or 2 of them. Fortunately, I got the ones that showed, that aired G.I. Joe, Transformers, Mask, Bionic 6. I like the Bionic 6 a lot. Thought that was a great cartoon. So I had access to those. I did not have access to Robotech. I did not have access to Voltron. I did not have access to Thundercats or Masters of the Universe. So those cartoons, though I have started watching them on streaming, were not the ones I got to grow up with. I got to grow up with the toys. I had, you know, some Masters of the Universe action figures, but I did not get a chance to watch the show. I read some of the comics of that time, but I didn't get to watch the show unless we went to visit my family, who lived in Dallas proper at that time. Then I would watch anything I could. I got to watch Voltron. I remember getting to watch Voltron and just be blown away. I think I got to watch a little Thundercats, and just these were just all new cartoons to me, and only got to see 1 or 2 episodes at that time, unfortunately. But G.I. Joe, Transformers, Mask, that was they aired those 3 back to back. I get home from school, there's Mask, which led right into Transformers, which led right into G.I. Joe, and that was a good hour-and-a-half block of cartoons for me. Oh, I see one section here I didn't finish. The gray. Let's go ahead and take care of that now before I forget about it. Actually, I think there was another spot I forgot to fill in gray. Oh yeah, right here on his chest. Right here on his calf. All right, so next up is some Y13. If I had to pick 6 heroes to fight with you, who would I pick? So I'm going into battle, and I get 6 heroes that will team up with me. Let's see, who would I pick? That's interesting, because I want to pick together just the right roster for this situation. Let's see. Well, if I want to win the fight, I'm going to pick Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman at DC. Pick the big 3. And then if I pick 3 Marvel, I'm going to pick Captain America, Spider-Man, and Iron Man. If I'm going to pick those 3. Now, if I'm going to pick from my favorites, my personal favorites, the characters that I like the most, I'd probably pick Kitty Pryde from the X-Men, Spider-Man, always. Let's see, I'll pick one more Marvel character. She-Hulk. Probably pick She-Hulk. Though the Thing from Fantastic Four is way up there too. So one of those 2 for my Marvel bruiser. From DC, I would pick probably to my chagrin, Impulse, Booster Gold, and Stargirl. If I was just picking based on favorites. And even then, that's like leaving out so many other favorites. Fun question, though. Fun question. So many different ways that question could be answered. Can we get a Silver Surfer tutorial? Would love to see that. Check out this morning's art live stream. I drew Silver Surfer on a post-it note just this morning. A little Y00 for the finishing lightness of the yellow section. Right. Oh, I still need to add some more lighter, cool, or neutral grays to his mask. So let's bring in some neutral 2. There we go. And then let's see. I want to color his eyeballs a little bit, put a little shape to his eyeballs. Let's see, is this on screen? Yeah. I need to get my tablet set up in a way that's easier for me to see so I can tell if I'm on screen or not on screen, because it's further up on my drafting table, so it's a little harder to see. And my feed is a like 3 to 5 second delay. So what I see on my iPhone here, where I'm watching the live stream chat, it's difficult. I mean, 5 seconds behind. Did I watch the new episode of Stargirl? Yes, I did. I did. It was a lot of fun. Shocking ending. If you haven't been watching Stargirl, check it out on the CW app. They got all the episodes. I think there are 10 episodes aired so far. Okay, now let's use some cool gray here to drop in some shadows. Some cool gray 3. We're here for the red area. Is that on screen? Could be my question to myself for the rest of this live stream. Is that on screen? Is that on screen? Use this cool gray 3 for the pouches as well. And shoulder straps. And sword handles. Okay, now let's see. Some cooler gray. I'm going to switch to the cool gray 2 for the yellow parts of this costume. With my hair, I could cosplay Nightwing next. Maybe with the hair, but not the physique. Unless we want to do a Peter B. Parker version of Dick Grayson. Richard B. Grayson, I guess, is who I could be. I'm too dad bod to pull off a Nightwing. Once I get in killer shape, when I'm just like ripped, then I'll do a legit Nightwing cosplay. Flat abs, popping muscles. If I could get that in shape, there are a lot of heroes I would then cosplay. Probably need a personal trainer to get me in that level of shape. What I need to do is get cast in a Marvel movie. A hero is a Marvel movie. As a hero in a Marvel movie. There was that meme going around of like Chris Pratt and Paul Rudd and a couple of other guys. They were a little bit doughy. Then they get cast as either Star-Lord, Ant-Man, whoever. And then all of a sudden they're just like jacked. Just super ripped and in shape and punky muscular. That's what I need. I need Marvel to cast me in a movie so I can get that kind of level of workout, so I can get that in shape. That'd be glorious. Okay, so next up, let's see, what is there any detail? Oh, let's see. I put a little more gray in his belt. And yeah, I think we're doing pretty good here. I just need to color the smoke that's all around here. So let's see, we'll do a cool gray for his the smoke coming from his pistol. You've seen some Jack 60-year-olds. Us young guys can do it too. Right on. Yes, I've seen those Jack 60-year-olds as well. So a little cool gray 2 and now a little cool gray 1. So yeah, so there is hope. It's never too late to get super ripped, I guess. Is the old adage. Little warm gray here. Just throw a little warm gray in here. A little contrast. Like how that looks. Like how that looks a lot. All right, so now for this smoke coming through the ground here. See a few more pencil lines I need to erase. And this before. Yes, I did say I'd write X-Men on Deadpool's costume. That is absolutely correct. I will be doing that. You're absolutely right. I don't want to forget that. Thank you for the reminder. I'm going to start with some cool gray. I'm going to use a lot of cool gray and a lot of warm gray for this. So some cool gray 3 here initially. Kick it over to the cool 2. What am I drawing? I'm drawing Deadpool in the X-Men costume from Deadpool issue, I think it was 17. Now for a little cool gray 1. Let's see, a little off to the side there. Just a smidge. Bring in a little neutral gray, a little neutral 1, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. Kind of change the color texture a little bit. Now for some warm gray. I'm going to start with a little warm gray 1. And go to the warm gray 0. Yes, it does take a lot of dedication to get into, be in, and stay in good shape. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Okay. I'm going to use a little bit of this greenish gray, some BG93. Try working a little bit of this just for a little different color texture. A little BG90 to blend all that into these other grays. I need to color his little bullet casing there. A little warm gray 3 mixed with a little neutral gray 3. Should do the trick. Trick. Should do the trick. A lot of questions coming here. Was I the model for Peter B. Parker in the Into the Spider-Verse movie? No, it's just uncanny how much I look like that cartoon character. It is uncanny. Hence my doing the cosplays. I was doing my Peter B. Parker cosplay yesterday here on my channel. Oops. Oh, that's where that pen went. Did I knock something else off? Apparently not. Gonna throw in a little yellow here into the muzzle flash. Very, 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 very light shady yellow. Some Y000. Yeah, I like that. And then let's see. Let's try throwing in some. Okay, I did knock down a marker. Where did that one go? I was going to use that one. Oh, there it is. Rolled under my chair. So I want to try to work in a little bit of color here into the background behind him a little bit. Is what I'm thinking. Do I do the circle trick? I've done this. You've done the circle template. I'll use the DVD as a circle template trick. It has looked cool for the previous two. Would that work here as well? Let's give it a little peek here. Just lightly rough it in pencil. See how it would look, and then I can erase it if I don't like it. You know what? I think I do like it. I do like it. But I don't want to use black because his costume is black. I think I'll use a shade of. I think I'll do kind of a light blue gradation. That's my thought. Oh, you know, I still have to write X-Men on his chest. Don't worry, gang. I haven't forgotten that. What if I went for kind of a danger room look? So I'll do kind of a bluish gray. Yes, yes, yes. That is what I shall do. Let me put the DVDs away here. Can work off of this penciled in circle. So let's see. Because he's mostly neutral gray, I will use cool grays this go around. Start with a cool gray 4. Leaving that halo around him. And by halo, I mean the white line. The white line left around all the line art. That Psych DVD is going to get worn and ruined out by using it as a circle template so much. I think you might be right. I have to stop grabbing season 1 disc 3. I'm going to have to use other seasons and other discs from other seasons. Try to rotate out which season I use, which disc I use from each season. I have all 8 seasons on DVD, so that's good. No end of, I have almost an endless supply of that exact size circle template. So we'll power down to the cool gray 3. So I've gone to 4, down to 3. Then from here, we'll go to a cool gray 2. Now I'll layer in some light blue as well to give it a very, to give it a different sort of shade of gray, make it a bluish gray. So because we have a lot of gray in his costume, we have a lot of gray in his guns. We have a lot of gray smoke. So I just want to give just a smidge of color. So I'm going to use the actually blue-green 000. We'll try that one. So I just color over all this gray with this blue-green through the lower half, at least, through the lighter portions. Maybe a little B00 in the upper portions. It's a little darker gray, a little bit of a darker shade of light blue. Just like that. And now, just as we give that a moment to dry, I'll take a check here. I could buy a brand new DVD with nothing on it and use it as a circle template. I totally have some DVDs, some blank DVDs or CDs that I could use. Genius, genius. What have I enjoyed the most about this year's Comic-Con thus far? Sleeping in my own bed and showering in my own shower. Glorious. I like staying in a hotel, don't get me wrong. But when you have the comfort of all your home amenities, that can be really nice too. But don't get me wrong, I do enjoy staying in a nice hotel. That is a treat for sure. Let's put in some Danger Room tech here in the background. I'm going to use my drafting tools and this white gel pen. We're going to make sure it's on screen. Make sure I'm on screen. We'll put it right there. And if I don't slide it up or down, then we should be good to get all the details without having to move it off of camera. Using the Uniball Sigma white gel pen. And a triangle here. Any old brand will do. I don't even know what brand this is. There's no name on it, or it's worn off, but just search drafting triangle. And you should be good. So I just want to make this look like the Danger Room behind him. So maybe he's doing a Danger Room exercise. Because if you're going to be an X-Man, you're going to be in the Danger Room. I have to be very careful in this stage because the white gel pen takes a moment to dry, and I don't want to put this down on top, the triangle down on top of wet gel pen ink, because then I'll get smear and smudge. So I got to be very cautious. Sometimes I have to hold it up over the art and not let it rest on the art. If I want this to happen a little more quickly and to make most of our live streaming time, I will do just that. So I'm kind of just holding it. I'm lifting it up off of the thing so it's barely touching the artboard. So it's only touching the board on the far outer side, outer edge. And then I'm using my left-hand thumb to lift it up off the artboard. If that makes sense. Maybe put a diagonal angle in here. So this is kind of a fun little technique I developed a while ago. I often do it for my X-Men commission illustrations, just to put them inside of a Danger Room, just as a background element. I did this. I don't know when I first did this, but I've been doing it for quite a while. Probably at least 4 years, maybe longer. And that's oftentimes I'll put a little circle in the background tech and put an X inside there. But since here we don't have a lot of room for that, I'm skipping the X in this regard. So it gives a nice little background detail to it's like detailed, but it's not so detailed that it overpowers Deadpool. And so as I mentioned before, I need to write X-Men across his chest. So I use my red mechanical pencil here to lightly rough it in, because I'm going to use red marker to write it in. So the red marker will cover up this red pencil. Left a little room there for where the N kind of goes off into the gray. Same for the X there. But most of it's in the yellow, because it'll show up better on yellow than on gray. Okay, now I thought I was going to use my Copic markers to write this, but instead I think I'm going to use a red Micron, so I have more control over the width of the line. I'm going to use the 0.8 Micron, so I can really craft this X, and so it really stands out, and I'm really already liking how this is looking here. Because I've used the Copic marker, the brush tip, or even using the a corner of the chisel tip might make the lines thicker than what I want them to be, and then it becomes this big, it could get muddied and messy. I want to try to avoid that as best I can. So with the Micron, the tip of this Micron multiliner, it affords me more control over the width of the lines. I can build them up as thick or make them as thin as I want. And I have less risk of creating muddied line work. There we go, just like that. That's fun. I like how that turned out. I like it very much. So, this was fun to do because it allows me more colors, or not really that many more colors, just yellow. But having that yellow break up the red of Deadpool, so the only red is really of his mask and his belt buckle. I don't know, it just gives him a different kind of pop, which I think is really fun. So let me throw my autograph on this one. And then today's date is the 25th of July, right here, 2020. And there we go. That is Deadpool. In fact, I can maybe raise the camera up a little bit now so you can see the full image. Put on the screen there. That's kind of like that. There we go. So I know the camera's at a little bit of an angle. I will have a shot of this on my social media. So make sure you're following me on Instagram, Twitter, and the Art of Todd Nauck page. All those links are in the video description below. And I'll have a shot of this on my social media here really soon. And hopefully if you're watching this on replay, I have the link to it in the video description, which will take you right to the image on my Instagram, which I try to do for all the art videos that I do is linked to that Instagram post. So you can go right to it so you can see how it looks. So gang, thanks so much for hanging out with me on this Saturday of San Diego Comic-Con at Home weekend. Thanks for coming to my online Artist Alley table. I'll be doing one more art live stream for this Comic-Con weekend, and that's tomorrow. Right now, I'm looking at 1 p.m. It might be a little bit earlier, so make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I could live stream as early as 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm going to schedule in between 12:30 and 1 p.m. Pacific time. That'd be 3:30 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And you can always check toddnauck.com or follow me on my social media for updates on that. And make sure you're subscribed to my channel and your notifications are set by tapping that bell to alert you to when I schedule an art live stream so you don't miss out. And you're always welcome to watch the replay. Always come back to watch the replay. And yeah, so gang, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Thanks for all the questions. Sorry I couldn't answer everybody's, but I appreciate all the questions and comments. And we'll do something tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to draw tomorrow, but we'll draw something and we'll have a good time to close out San Diego Comic-Con 2020 weekend. Everybody, thanks for hanging out. Stay safe. Keep on drawing. Keep having fun. I'm Todd Nauck. Take care.